Good evening once again. I welcome you back for this tutorial. And today I want us to look at various things. But first, before we move to the main topic of the day, I want us first to see or briefly see the roles played by the shipping agents in port. Now, shipping agents are, as we know, that these are the representatives of the shipping lines. Since we know that ships normally they belong to other nations, but they move in foreign ports, and they need someone who will receive them at that port, who will represent their interests, who will look for them the things which they need, maybe like water, help them in exchange and all that. So these are the roles of these shipping agents in the port. So we want to see them. So they perform various roles while at the port, one of which is that they help in organizing a pilot, tags, and linemen who will help bring the ship into the port. As we know that when a foreign vessel is coming, the foreign vessels normally needs the aid of the local pilot, so that the local pilot can pick her at the deep sea and bring the ship to the point whereby it is going to be tied at, that is at the berth. Now, again, as we know that when the ship is almost approaching the berth, it is a requirement that the engine should be switched off so that the ship moves at almost a zero speed. And at that point now, we need the aid of what called the tags, the tugboats. These are the small boats which are tied. So they're the ones which would be used, they'll be tied to the vessel and pulled closely up the point whereby they're going to be moored at the berth. Okay, so the one who organizes this with the port authority or the port personnel is the shipping agent. Then, besides that, the shipping agent also ensures that a ship has the necessary berth in port and that all the required paperwork, including the customs paperwork, is completed in the right time. Then, when their ships arrives in the port, the agent's role is include bringing mail and local currency for the ship's crew. Maybe the crew members, maybe they want to have some walk around the port and buy some few things. They can help them in exchange rates. Though this is normally very much restricted, but if maybe the country allows them to maybe disembark from the ship and maybe take some walk around the port area, and maybe they want to buy some one, two things, can assist them in exchange. Then the shipping agent also organizes the supplies needed for the ship's crew to survive on the next leg of the journey. As we know, this is what's called here, whatever they need there, we normally call them the ship stores. We know that in the high seas, there's no hotel, there's no place where people can eat. So these people, they must be accompanied, or they must accompany themselves with enough food which can sustain them until they arrive in the next port. So the one who assists them in getting that is the shipping agent. Now, the agent also have some responsibilities for organizing the cargo to be carried by the ship and for making sure that the necessary paperwork is completed for the ship to leave the particular port. So they help in getting cargo for the next leg of the journey, and also in completion of necessary paperwork to allow that ship so that it can leave the port. So an agent may also pay bills on behalf of the ship's owner when the ship departs from that particular port. So if there are those port charges, the one who normally pays the port charges, because remember the ship owner is in another foreign country, but now the one who represents the interest of the ship owner is the agent, so he pays those necessary charges which are required by the authority. Then ensuring a berth for the incoming ship, they arrange for the pilot and the tags, just as we said, drawing up the documents for the customs and the harbor services, and assisting the master in making the necessary contact with the local authorities and the harbor authorities. Now, besides arranging for the necessary ship fresh water or the provision, arranging for the necessary doctor for the crew, any medical assistance ranging for the storage bunkers. If these are needed, also he can assist, or he can also assist in arranging for the necessary repairs. Also, for there are also the shipping agents. So the agents coordinate the arrival and the launch times with the with the ship schedule, synchronizing vendor request, um, also arrival dates and needs or directions from the pilot or the captain. So the agent needs, while in port, are arranged and coordinated through the ship's agent. So the needs are normally arranged and they are coordinated through the agent. So the agent is responsible for maintaining a formal schedule, disseminating information to involve parties, and creating um, an in or outbound the personnel resources required on the vessel for scheduled pickups or offloads, and is a contact for any certified signature. So ship agent is a very important person. He's a very instrumental person in the port whenever a foreign vessel is arriving, because he will act on behalf of the owner in so many things which will be required by that particular ship to meet while in that foreign port. So a ship agent should know all shipping regulations for all ports, ensuring compliance with the international shipping regulations, like the IMO regulations. They need to comply. If the solars, we have the maples and all that. Yeah. So it needs to ensure that these regulations, the international regulations, the safety practices, that is the safety of life at sea, the SOLAS, and the policies of the ship owner. So the agent should also know all applicable publications containing regulations and certifying authorities. So it needs to know that each port normally they have got their own regulations, and it needs to be equipped with such regulations so that it can update the master, so that the master, when he's coming with the vessel, he knows that this is what is required in this particular port. Because ports, there are some ports which may require certain things which are not necessary in another port. So agents should maintain copies of all documents, including the bills of lading, insurance and inspection certificates. They need to have copies of that. And it's also available during arranged hours for communications involving the ship's owner. So it's also the point of contact for all stakeholders, the crew and the port authorities, and the servicing of the ship's main liaison while in the port. So is the contact person, be the port authority. If they have the problem, they have got any question with the ship, they contact the agent. So the agent normally acts as a point man for contact. So is also the communication duties, including cultivating various relationship at the port with appropriate agencies, as well as fulfilling commercial and public relations needs. So communication should be recorded in a ledger for reference, and on-call and extended hours are often required. So besides that, a ship's agent must converse cargo to be carried by the principal's vessel and collect all the freights due and remit the freights collected, uh, less communications due to agent to the principal. So a ship's agent also must prepare all the shipping documents required. Examples like the BLs, the DOs, that's the delivery order, arrival notifications, the freight invoices, which is showing how much was paid in terms of the freight, the cargo manifests, and furthermore, a shipping agent must maintain records of all transactions and also coordinate the vessel's arrival, departures, loading, and unloading activities through a liaison with the port operators, customs, shippers, consignees, forwarding agents, and stevedores. So they also must keep principal informed of all the local business environments and the market trends. So, as you have seen there, an agent uh, A shipping agent has got a lot to play. He has got a lot of activity which is required to play on behalf of the ship owner. And remember, an agent is always just a representative of the owner. And the owner in this case, we normally refer to as the principal. Principal is now here the ship owner in this case. So he acts on his behalf. Now, to our main chapter, that is the chapter 4. We want to talk about the finance principles in the international trade. We all know that for goods to be exchanged, there must be a medium of exchange. And unlike in the past, whereby we had got different ways in which people could buy things that is good for good, what was called the barter trade. Currently, the type of trade that is recognized globally is whereby there's exchange of a good for a currency. So we want to see some of the finance principles that are used in the international trade. And importance before that, we'll start with the importance of transport documents in the international trade. We know for me to claim that this particular container is mine, my name is not written in the container. It must be accompanied by documentations. So it is the documentations that will make the authorities or the officials acting or working at the port to know that this particular cargo belongs to person A or this particular cargo belongs to person B. So what importance do these transport documents play in the logistics chain? They represent the contract of carriage that is containing the conditions that pertain to the shipping transaction. So it should be noted that it will contain all the terms and conditions under which the transport operation will take place. So these transport documents, they always act as the contract of carriage, and they're stating clearly under what conditions did the carrier accept to carry those particular goods. It also acts as a proof that the merchandise has been delivered for transport. So the seller can demonstrate this to the customer. This is the only way the buyer could get their hands on this particular document. So it's a proof that there is a delivery. The goods have been delivered for transport. So you're given, like if in the case of a ship, once you deliver your goods to the shipping line, they may issue with a temporary document known as the mate's receipt. The mate's receipt, awaiting for the real document, that is the legal one, that is the bill of lading, to be prepared. So it shows that the goods were delivered in good conditions. So the freight carrier will not accept any merchandise that is visibly damaged or contain noticeable flaws. So notifying the exporter of the situation in the event that the freight carrier notices damage or the flaws, the transport document becomes known as a dirty transport document with perceived damage noted at the time of the delivery. So it normally shows that the goods were delivered in good conditions, and in case that they are not delivered in the good conditions, then there must be that kind of amendment, and then that particular document will be known as, if it is a bill of lading, we'll call it a dirty BL because of the amendments which have been done. Okay, shows the ownership of the goods, so determining who is authorized to present themselves to customs to receive the merchandise. So in the case of maritime transport, the transport document, which is known as the BL, is represent other values of the recipient name. So they'll give who is the recipient. It allows the transmission of ownership. Yeah, those ones, the types of BL that allows you to transfer ownership the goods. So it is to say that this document allows the purchaser of the good to transmit the ownership of it to someone else, often endorsing the BL, so the second purchaser to carry the importation. Okay, what we call in those BLs, we call them the notifying parties. You find that it is indicated as, if it is transferred, they are normally indicated as notifying parties. Now, a point for us to note is that in the case of air transport, the document used is normally called the bill, airway bill. So we use an airway bill, what in brief we normally call the AWB, is acts as a receipt. Normally, it acts as a receipt issued by the international airline for goods and evidence that the contract of carriage, to evidence the contract of carriage. But remember, this is not a document of title. So this is a point for you to remember. The only document of title is the bill of lading. But the other ones are not document of title. They just act as a receipt of the goods which have been received for transport. So ground transportation uses document called the consignment note. That is the surface transport, like the land, roads, and rail. So carriage of goods by roads, inland rail, railway bill, and unlike the landing, air and land transport documents do not allow the transfer of ownership. So it is only in the bill of lading whereby there's that transfer of ownership, but these other ones, no, there's no transfer. So whoever was notified there as the owner will be the person who will receive those goods. Now, just to summarize, the importance of transport document in any modes of transport is one, allows whoever is nominated to claim the goods before the customs authority upon arrival. So allows you, whoever is nominated, whoever his name appear there, to claim those goods. That is because of that document. He can claim them. Then it makes it possible to observe the conditions of the contract of carriage. By use of this document, it is possible for you to observe the terms and conditions under which these goods were carried. So in case maybe there is a loss, you can refer to that particular clause in the contract. Then it shows that the merchandise has been delivered without suffering apparent damage. That is, when we talk about the clean bill of lading, there's no amendment which has been done to it. And in the case of maritime transport, this document makes it possible to transfer ownership of the goods through a simple endorsement. So without one of those documents, the recipient of the goods will not be allowed to claim the goods at customs. So delays in obtaining transport documents generate cost, and delays delay the release of such goods. Now, some of the aspects of transport documents, some of the things that they contain. One of the things is the issue date, that the date of transport document represent the date of boarding. That is the date of boarding of the cargo, which often arises as a condition in the sales agreement or in the means of payment. So this date needs to be kept in mind because the compliance or the breaches of the conditions agreed depends on it. So when you call the issue date, when it refers to the transport document, that is the time when those goods were placed on board the ship. That is the time we call them the issue date. Description of the merchandise. The document should include full and accurate description of the merchandise that must match with the invoice. So the details there must match in the invoice. The COO, the certificate of origin, the packing list. There should not be a variation in what the packing is saying and what the invoice is saying and the certificate of origin is saying, rather the document. Weight and volume. It is important the weight and the volume of the freight be declared correctly and with precision. So they should be the same at the time of arrival of the cargo to the destination port. If the weight of the shipment upon arrival does not coincide with the amount indicated in the shipping document, the release of the shipment could be delayed or subject to other inconveniences. So what it means here is that whatever the weight if that particular cargo is that which is determined by its weight. It has been indicated that this is 40 tons. Then when we weigh it, we find that it's 35 tons. Why is that 5 tons? So you have to explain. A thorough verification must be done just to ascertain what might have caused the loss of some of the tons. Did you sell them along the way? Or what happened? Payment terms, the document of the transport usually indicate if the freight is paid, what we call the freight prepaid, or if the freight will be paid at the destination by the consignee of the merchandise. So we do have two types of freight. You have freight prepaid or the freight collect. The freight prepaid is always paid by the exporter at the port of loading. Now, the freight collect, this is whereby it comes with the Incoterms like the FOBs, the free on board, where before the client or the importer collect his cargo, the first thing he has to do, he has to clear with the shipping line by paying the freight. Okay, so we refer to that as a freight collect. Corresponding signatures, the document must be duly signed by the carrier or the agent. It is their duty to sign a value to the cargo. So then you have notices. The transport document usually indicates who should be notified once the shipment arrives at the port. So who should be notified? So the person to be notified may be the consignee or a third party. And the third party here, when we talk about a third party here, we mean it can be an agent or a clearing agent. It can be any other party who represent the owner. Okay. Then we have consignee information. The consignee correct information should be included on all the documents, mainly the company name and the contact information. Then full set of copies, then 3 original copies of the document, transport documentation should be issued. In this regard, the recipient of the merchandise should receive 1 copy asset as a document that represent the ownership of those merchandise. Now, some of the documents that are used in international trade and what they perform. There is this document called the letter LOC. That's the letter of credit. Now, this document is that document that enables an importer to get goods on credit to assure the exporter that the amount due will be paid. So when you have a letter of credit, it gives you an assurance. It gives an assurance to exporter that, okay, I'm going to give you these goods without paying cash, but I'm assured that the payment is going to come in due time. So it signifies that issuing bank would pay the corresponding bank the amount stated therein, provided the exporter meets certain conditions such as submitting the necessary export documentation. So that one, the LOC will have succeeded. Import license enables a person to import goods. It shows that the importer has permission to deal with the goods. Then we have what we call the indent, is an order sent by the importer to an agent in the exporting country. It contains the details of the goods required, the method of packing, the transporting company, and the terms of payment. So an indent is like an order. Okay. A BL. This is prepared, a document prepared when goods are ordered. Goods ordered are loaded into the ship. So the moment the goods have been loaded in the ship, they give you this particular document known as the bill of lading. So what is the importance of this? It acts as an evidence that the goods have been received by the owner. Okay. It evidence that the terms of the contract between the ship owner and the shipper. A document of title in that it enables the person named therein or his agent to claim the goods when they arrive at the port of destination. Okay. policy or certificate of insurance, a document that shows that the goods have been insured. Okay, the goods are insured before they are dispatched. So remember, in the insurance, normally we have various Incoterms that you deal with that. One of them is CIF, cost insurance and freight. And the reason why we insure is to protect our investments in case of uncertainties. We be assured of getting back to the same position we were before the risk occurred. So then we have the COO, prepared by the exporter giving details of the goods exported and the name of the country where they have come from. What is the importance of this? It enables the importer to get the preferential treatment of the goods imported, especially if they originated from a country that is a member of trading bloc, like the COMESA. We have such company. We have the PTA, preferential trade areas. So if you're importing from a member state and the CO, the certificate of origin, shows that this is a member of SADC, this is a member of COMESA, this is a member of PTA, this is a member of East African Community. So there is that kind of there is a kind of treatment that you will get. So preferential treatment, you'll be given a preferential treatment. Maybe some taxes may be waived for you. Airway bill, as we said, is normally represent goods which are exported by air. The importance, a receipt or an acknowledgement acknowledging consignment of goods from the shipper, an evidence of the contract of carriage, a contract between the shipper and the airline for the moving of goods to the destination, a freight bill as it contains all the details, a document of instruction to carrier staffs in handling, dispatching, and delivering shipment, a customs declaration. So an airway bill is issued and signed by the airway company. They are made out in the name of the buyer or the banker of the buyers, and the issuance date of the airway bill is considered to be the date of the shipment. The commercial invoice. This is prepared by the seller to the payment, to demand payment, and it contains name and address of the exporter, name and address of the importer, the price, terms of sales, description of the consignment, name of the ship transporting the consignment, and what importance does it bring? When you use it, it is basically used to demand payment. Then we have got the consular invoice. It shows the prices charged on the goods, that the prices charged on the goods are fair, as certified by the importing country's officials or the consul with the embassy in the exporting country. Now, there's some cases whereby before I receive the commercial invoice, I may request for a consular invoice. Consular invoice is prepared by the consulate, the representative of a country in another country, just to confirm that the prices which are being charged for such goods is the same price at which they're being sold in the country where I am. Okay. Now, the importance of that helps in speeding up delivery of those goods to the importer. Then we have another type of invoice known as the pro forma invoice. It resembles an invoice. Apart from being marked pro forma, it does not hold the buyer liable for payment of the amount marked in it. Now, circumstances under which it is used to serve as a formal quotation. It forms a formal quotation. It serves as a polite request for payment in advance for the goods ordered, especially if the customer is new, and where the importer would like to initiate clearing of customs duty early enough to avoid such delays. Then we have a freight note. Now, this is a document prepared by the shipping company to indicate the charges for shipping the goods, and some of the important charges that it sends to the exporter who upon payment of the charges get a receipt. Then, as I said, remember that a freight can be paid, can have collect, can have a freight prepaid. Then letter of hypothecation, that is a letter written by the exporter to his or her bank, authorizing it to resell the goods being exported. That is, maybe you ordered for some goods, but I'm not seeing the willingness in you to pay, so I can write a letter of hypothecation to my bank so that those goods on voyage can be resold to another willing buyer or another willing person, if I see that there is no genuinity in you that you can pay them. So that letter can act. Then we have a weight note. This is simply a document that states the weight and the measurements of the goods delivered at the docks. And remember what I said prior, that with the weight note, if I find that whatever is stated in the weight note is different with the actual cargo, then that cargo will have to be detained so that proper verification is done, so that whatever is appearing in the document matches with what is physically available. Then we have shipping note. This is a document that is issued by the ship owner, giving details of the goods which shipped. So it gives the details of those goods which were shipped. So we call it the shipping note. A BL, as we have talked about, is simply a document issued by the carrier or his agent to acknowledge the receipt of those cargoes for shipment. Although the term is historically related to only to carriage by sea, a bill of lading may today be used in any type of the carriage of goods. So BLs are one of the three crucial documents used in international trade to ensure that exporters receive payment and the importers receive their merchandise. And the two documents are policy of insurance and an invoice, and whereas a bill of lading is negotiable, both a policy and invoice are assignable. So the other one is negotiable, the other one is assignable. So in international trade, outside the US, BL are distinct from waybills in that the latter are not transferable. That is, waybills are not transferable and do not confer titles. So they are not also documents of titles. But nevertheless, in the UK, the Carriage of Goods by Sea Act of 1992 grants all rights of suit under the contract of carriage to the lawful holder of the BL or to the consignee under a sea waybill or a ship's delivery order. So a bill of lading must be transferable and serves three main functions. So it is a conclusive receipt. So it acts as a receipt of goods received for carriage. It contains the evidence, the terms of the contract of carriage, and serves as a document of title to the goods subject to the named that route rule. That is, typically, the transaction used Incoterms such as the CIF, the FOB, the free alongside ship, requiring the exporter of the shipper to deliver the goods to the ship, whether on board or alongside. And nevertheless, we find that the loading itself will usually be done by the carrier himself or by a third party, such as the stevedores. So they're the ones who can perform that particular function. So the roles, we have highlighted them as we've talked about as the seat of cargo. These are just further explanation on that. Also, the evidence of the contract of carriage of goods. As we said, that the bill from the carrier to the shipper can be used as an evidence of the contract of carriage by the fact that carriers receive the goods, and upon the receipt, the carrier will deliver the goods. So in this case, the bill will be used as simply a contract of carriage. So in this case, the bill can be used if a shipper does not properly ship the goods. Then the shipper cannot receive the bill from the carrier. So eventually, the shipper will have to deliver the bill to the seller. In this case, the bill is used as a contract of carriage between the seller and the carrier. So then when it is used as a title, that is, it is particularly related to the case of a buyer. When a buyer is entitled to receive the goods from the carrier, the bill is, in this case, performs as a document of title for those goods. So there are normally two types of a bill of lading that can perform as a document of title. We have one termed as the straight bill, and the other one is the order bill. Now, the straight bill is a document is issued to a named consignee that is not negotiable. In this case, the bill should be directed only to one specific consignee indicated in that particular bill. That's a straight bill. So it cannot be transferred, okay? Then we have the order bill. Is normally now the opposite of the straight bill, in that there is no specific or named consignee. So therefore, an order bill can be negotiable to a third party. So simply, the bill of lading confers the prima facie title over the goods to the named consignee or lawful holder under what called the nemo that called an habit, that rule that no one gives what he doesn't have. So a seller cannot price better title than himself has. So if the goods are subject to encumbrance, such as the mortgage charge or the hypothetic, or even the stolen, the bill of lading will grant a title, a full title to the holder. So we have various types of the bill, which we'll see in our next tutorial. So up to there, unless someone has a question, you can leave your comment there, and then I'll attend to them. Up to next time, have a good evening. Bye.